Welcome to the Grief Pod with Venetia Quick. This is a weekly podcast which looks at every aspect of something which has or will at some point affect us all. And that is grief. Whether you've lost a loved one or about to lose someone you know, or perhaps you're simply trying to help someone navigate their grief and don't know where to start or what to say, then perhaps this is the podcast for you. Each week I'll be bringing you different stories and experiences of loss, love, hope and at times humour. Andrea Hayes is a broadcaster, a TV presenter, a best-selling author of Pain-Free Life, My Journey to Wellness, and also My Life Goals Journal. She's also your psychotherapist.
Training
psychotherapist.
Finished. I'm a hypnotherapist, but I'm still training. I'm doing another master's. Wow. Constant training.
Yeah, but great as well for you. And you're a member of the Bethany Bereavement Group, a grief minister. And also one thing that a lot of people don't know about you, you have lived a life with chronic pain as well. So thank you very much for coming on this week to the Grief Pod. There's so many facets in one way to your story, I think, and how you are here and the person you are today, really.
Yeah, it's so interesting. As I said on the way in, and I know you very well, Venetia, nobody would know I would have a grief story. Yeah. Even though I've done the Bethany work for 16 years. Yeah. But like grief, it's such a private journey.
It is. And it's something I think that just comes with time, whether you want to talk about it, whether you don't. And, you know, I suppose on a wider scale, do something like this, whether you feel comfortable sharing it to a wider audience and how it all sort of came into your life and is in your life.
Yeah, I'll go back, as they always say, sort of to the beginning. Yeah. But what happened with the Bethany work, so Bethany is a kind of a church-based listening service for anybody that's grieving. But I think it's over 21 years ago, my dad, who'd been very sick for a long time, passed away, and in the end it was cancer, but he was quite young. He was in his late 50s. I think he might just turn 60. But I just moved from the north side to the south side, and I felt like I'd kind of, I'd no support system or structure in this new area. I knew kind of the north side very well. All my family are there, the walks that I like to walk, all these tools that we have that sort of scaffold us when we have terrible things happen to us. I was kind of in this area where I didn't know anything. So I started going to a local church. It wasn't immediate, grief takes a long time to kind of unfold. And a man had noticed me kind of going in and out, obviously praying. And he started chatting to me, and he was giving me what I didn't know at the time was kind of grief listening, just listening, witnessing my story and hearing me talk about dad and other things that were going on. And I found it very helpful and a very private, kind of just a little bit of support locally opened up a community to me, and I started going in for a cup of tea. And it was really nice because at the time, I suppose I might have been on the radio, probably was on the radio at the time, and maybe doing a bit of TV work. But they didn't judge me or know who I was or didn't want to talk about my work. It was about my story. And then after a little while, he kind of said to me, we're involved in the Bethany ministry, because I kind of wanted to give back then, as you do. When you're given that gift, your first response is gratitude. And you want to say thank you. That really helped me. So I trained as a Bethany listener. And that was, I said, it could be 16, 17 years. I don't know. It was a long time. So that's how I kind of got into listening to other people's story. But if you even look at the TV shows I would have done, it was like over 100 episodes of Animal A&E or Dog Tales, even going up to Dublin Airport, life stories.
I was just thinking that, because people, especially coming back for Christmas or leaving again, is so emotional in itself, particularly if perhaps they're leaving somebody who's they might not see again.
Yeah, and all my family emigrated. So all of the work I've ever done is because it's something I'm deeply passionate and connected to. So it was animals in pain. The Bethany work, while people don't see, I don't bring cameras in, or I haven't really spoken about it on the radio, I'm so connected to it because my mum lost a lot of her sisters quite young. And as a young child witnessing that, it was really, it shaped who I became.
Yeah. And you have said that your mum has been hugely inspirational behind everything that you've done and all the hurdles
I know, I'm
that you've overcome.
Thinking of it, because I just don't know how she got through it.
Because she lost 4 siblings.
She did. She lost 3 quite young, and one was in her late 30s, and then she lost another one in her 40s. And I've got sisters. You imagine, it's just so sad. And then my dad was very sick. And then she had young kids. And then even sadder again, it was kind of the late 80s, my 3 siblings left. So there was just so much abandonment. There was so much isolation and loss for her. And I just think, I don't know how she got through it. You know, I really don't know how. So she's very strong. She's sick at the minute. She has dementia. But when I reflect back, I mean, she was in her 30s and 40s and 50s herself. She was in her 50s when my dad died, but she'd already buried, at that stage, 3 sisters and her mother, all within a decade.
Wow. And so she had no time to even... I hate using the phrase get over, because I don't think you really ever get over something. Like, you learn to live with it, whatever. But so she never had really a space or time or just even a gap to go to fully grieve one before she had to grieve another.
Yeah, and it's funny,
Wow.
I don't think people really see grief, because grief can be masked as exhaustion. Grief can get quickly masked as, maybe they're drinking too much, or they be these maladaptive things that we do. You know, she's thrown herself into work or whatever it is. But generally, exhaustion is a real key indicator for me. If somebody's really tired and they, haven't got the energy to get out of bed, and it's not quite depression, it's just this overwhelming heaviness, because carrying around the trauma of loss every single day is exhausting. And you can never put that down. You're carrying something so heavy. It's really exhausting. So I think that's what I observed when I was quite young. But then it was very difficult for me to articulate that to my sisters sometimes, because they were living away and they didn't see it. So she wasn't the mum that they kind of remembered. Now it's different now. That's kind of like 30, maybe over years ago, but now they're back and forth quite often. But when you're young, maybe in your 20s, and you've moved to another country and setting up a new life, you have this vision of your mum being a certain person and not really seeing the grief that she had. And then even my own dad, he had a heart attack when he was in his 40s, but he died of cancer in his late 50s. So he kind of had about 20 years of just being very sick. So I think that was a living grief.
Yeah, because was also probably his carer to a certain degree, but yet she wanted to keep the show on the road for you guys and put up a sort of a front in one way, because
she was just so traumatised by the word cancer, because she'd lost a sister very young, and it was devastating. We all went through that. And then another sister, and it was kind of a shock, the other sister, because while she had cancer, she wasn't sick. We hadn't got to that horrible end stage. And as I was saying, I was in college at the time, and I got a call to say I had to go to Beaumont Hospital. So of course I thought, oh my God, my dad's dead, because he was always sick, know. And I went in, and he'd had a fall, so he had to go to surgery. And I looked at him, and he said, they just want to have a chat with you. You need to do something really strong for Mam. I was going, what's going on here? And they bring you into the little room, and they say, I believe your Mam's sister has passed away. Now her husband, I think, was being called. It was just so coincidental. I don't know how it happened that my dad was brought in and maybe she was brought in, or the husband was there. I'm trying to remember. But
it was all the same time.
Yeah.
Wow.
And they didn't want to tell my mum, because they really felt that my dad felt this would be just insurmountable for her, because she was not expecting this sister to die. And then he was going in for surgery as well at the same day. But, I went in and I saw the body, and it was lovely. I feel very blessed that I had that moment with my auntie, because I got to say kind of a goodbye to her. But then saying it to your mum that she'd passed away, and just witnessing that. But then oftentimes with grief, as you know, other things become a priority, because it's so painful to deal with that. You're like, well, let's get through your dad's operation, and you're getting through funerals, and then you're getting through. So I don't think she really processed that.
So she was functioning.
Yeah.
Really.
And then when her third sister died, who'd had cancer and got over it, and her mum died, I think she just went into a dark place.
What was that like for you?
It was just really difficult. And I think, I've got a real empathic heart. It's probably why I loved listening to people's stories on the radio or shows. I can see people's pain, because often what I really believe is people who are in the most pain are the most quiet and the most kind and the most giving. And they don't look for a lot of support. So that's why I think for me, doing a free listening service that's in the community, that's completely free, it's very quietly done, really catches the right people that need the right help.
What, when you say listening, now that's obviously one of the main things that always comes across when you're talking about perhaps what to say to people or how to talk to people, mentioning their loved one's name without, because a lot of people feel, oh, I can't mention their name because they'll get upset and then I'll get upset and I won't know what to say. But the other thing that comes up is people sort of qualifying what you've said by telling their story. So, oh yeah, the same thing, or I know, that sort of thing. So when you're listening, what are the key things?
I suppose you've named it there, that it's not your time, it's their time. Because in this conversation, as we normally do, you'd say that happened to me. And that's a lovely thing in real life because it connects us. But when somebody comes in, it's just to have such a compassionate heart. So you're hoping that they'll see that it's a safe space for them to be sad, to be happy, to be angry, all of the emotions, but not to even have any judgment if they not want, they don't want to say anything. So we just listen with a kind heart. We don't fact find. So I will never go, where did that happen? And what happened there? And what hospital? So you don't fact find. You don't want to fix. So you're not saying, do you know what would be great? You go here. And you're not trying to be, I don't want to say their friend, but there's, you're there for them. They don't owe you anything. They don't need to give you anything. I always say, this is your time. Nobody needs anything from you. Nobody wants anything from you. If you just want to sit with me, I'm just here with an open heart, no judgment. Yeah. And they just go off.
And that's, I think, something really nice about that is it's also, in one way, it's sort of anonymous because you're not feeling like you should hold stuff back or, I actually sitting here thinking, God, this would really work as well in other areas of life where people are struggling, I think, as well. Do you feel that I often feel with this podcast, we were just saying before, I feel that I get a lot from listening to the people's stories, and I find support in stories that people tell from my own, to my own situation. And do you get support from it yourself?
Oh, no, absolutely. We just started our 5-week course, as I said last night. So I've been doing that now. I'm indefinitely strong for over 10 years because it took a while to get set up. But every time, I just lost my mother-in-law 6 months ago, which was a complete shock. So my husband is really grieving.
In those stages.
But I'm getting so much support from being there. In the last 16 years, I've had numerous kind of miscarriages. One was a cancer pregnancy, which is very unusual. So I would have got support then. Then, my cousin died very young, which was so hard because I just couldn't even face into it. So there's no right way to do grief. There's no, it just surprises you. And I'm sure you've probably had somebody reference it here before, that glitter analogy, that grief is like glitter. Have you heard that?
No.
Oh, it's so lovely. So it said that grief is like glitter. Now, if you're a mum or a dad or a granny or even just a kid or any age, when you open a pack of glitter, it goes everywhere. And it's in your hair, it's in your hands. And initially, I think grief is like glitter. It's everywhere. It's in every part of your life. It's so overwhelming.
Omnipresent. Yeah.
And it's just everywhere and it's frustrating. You try to clear it up neatly and you find a little bit over there. And then, but like glitter, grief then, you could have a Christmas card and in May, there's a tiny bit of that glitter.
But that's what I was to say. It's like that sort of, like we've talked a good bit about signs and like the staunchest anti-believers of signs, like myself, suddenly really believe in signs and things. And, sometimes they make you sad. Sometimes they, they make you laugh. Sometimes they make you feel really comforted because the other person is there. If that's what you believe, But just the glitter analogy as well, that like there's always that speck.
Oh, always. It never goes away.
Yeah.
You learn to live around it, or you learn to say, I've tried so hard to work with that, but there's going to be a little bit here and there. Even after years, there's no finishing with it. But there's something sparkly and beautiful in it as well. Like, it's very frustrating having grief and grieving and mourning, and everything's different. Grief is the feeling, grieving is the process, mourning is the collective noun we use for it. But there's something that signifies the deep love or connection you had with somebody, with something. It could be your animal, you know, people, whoever you had connect. It could be a job. People really grieve jobs or parts of their life, or their children leaving. We go through life with this, and it's one of those things that often we don't talk about, and it makes us very vulnerable to even talk about. But yeah, no, I think
it's a lovely analogy.
I think the glitter, it's not mine, it's somebody on social media, but I think it's a lovely analogy. A very funny thing happened last night which made me giggle about signs, because it was our, you know, first night, and we don't know who people are, and it's all anonymous. But we had a particular lighting setting in the room, and there was candles and very dark lighting, and not dark, but you know, a nice gentle lighting. And then out of the blue, the main light just kept coming on. Right, and it happened twice.
Almost like a seance.
It was just really weird, and particular time that it happened. And it made everybody laugh because of what happened and what was said. And then this light came on, and it was a great big laugh. And I thought, that's so good, because of like that oscillating thing with grief. You can't stay in the darkness too long. There has to be that light and shade.
There has to be humour somewhere. And in a lot of, I mean, obviously some cases are so incredibly tragic, it's difficult to find that humour, but there's often, it's so helpful when there's humour,
and it has to happen. And it really proved again last night, even the signs, maybe our body just takes them as signs because we need that relief in that moment. So I'm sure there could be a reason why the light went on, but we needed a bit of relief. We all laughed, and that was, it's okay to laugh, and it's okay to go to the cinema, it's okay to meet your friends. But then it's okay to have really bad days where you're in bed and you can't see anybody, and you want to be in that sadness and hold your feelings and say, I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm upset, I'm overwhelmed, whatever it is. Allow yourself to feel it.
And it's interesting you say that, because when the Irish Hospice Foundation ran their National Grief Awareness Week there recently, and one of the conversations I had with them was that, in fact, people who are grieving are the most judged people, because, you know, nobody judges them for being sad because that's expected. But you might be somewhere and somebody takes a photo and they put it up on Instagram and you're smiling, and it's, oh, they're fine, they're smiling, or oh, they shouldn't be smiling now, or that judgment as well is just doesn't have a place.
Yeah, and it's part of our society. Sadly, it's kind of embedded into what we feel. So even, you know, people say, I should be over it by now, you know, and they use the language. There was a lovely thing that Alan Ardif did a number of years ago. He's a jewellery designer, and then it was part of our history, and that he made this heart, this little pin. So it was similar to the black band that you'd use. Yeah. And in society years ago, you took it as just the very basic that people would grieve for a year. And in that year, there'd be no judgment, and all you would offer that person is deep compassion and friendship and connection and support. So for one whole year, and if they had this little pin, he kind of came up with it, but I thought it was beautiful, and I haven't seen it since.
No, but I've read about it. Yeah. And I think it's such a lovely idea, because it's there without you saying, telling a story. Yeah. You know.
But just if you see somebody with the pin, or if you see somebody, you know, with the knowing that they're in grief, like even if it's 6 months, you can send them that card, or you can just give them a hug, or do nothing. But I think energy comes from the heart, and if you have an open heart, that person feels that, and there's a connection. It's so hard though, because, you know, I still haven't really processed my cousin who died, and I feel absolutely terrible because I haven't really been able to see, you know, her husband and the nieces. I haven't been able to see a particular side of the family because it's really still deeply upsetting for me. And that was only, you know, I think it's 3 years now, but she was so young. It just, and I would know this territory very well, but it's just deeply painful for me. Yeah. So we have to be kind and compassionate to ourselves as well. that there's no right way to do anything, and we're doing the best we can.
You also have talked a lot about, and you know, it's people wouldn't know this because you're so smiley and bubbly, and like there's something lovely, particularly about animal A&E, and it's just, you know, what they wouldn't know is behind all of that, you've had all of this grief. You know, the miscarriages. Your cousin, like watching your mum's grief, which is grief in itself, whether at the age you were, you understand it or not, it resonates. I think in your head, if you're when your parent loses a parent, and how they are afterwards stays with you, and you mightn't think about it really until you're an adult, and then you go, oh wow, you know. But you've also had chronic pain. You've
a lot of health things.
Yeah.
Like even as a kid, I had hearing loss.
Yeah.
So from a very young age,
You've had loss.
I was already at a loss.
Yeah.
You know, I couldn't read or write. She can't read or write. There was always this sense of lack. And I think it has just maybe given me a different lens to be at a loss in life, you know. So when people, I've just realised I think I look at things differently. So I see everybody in their perfection. I try to deeply, that's one of my things. So I try to see a whole person, and those, like the glitter, the spark in everybody. There's a divine spark in everybody. Even, you know, the best place to see that is hospitals. Go into a hospital and you'll realise how lucky you are to have your health. You know, go into places where real grief and pain are held. I mean, look at the world, what's happening. But even in our communities, what I always say to people is, you know, instead of looking at the problems on a world stage, which are huge, how about just looking in our own homes, in our own communities, in our own lives? If you can be nice to your neighbour, you know, if you can be nice to yourself, that kind of goes like a ripple effect into the world. And it's that little bit, you know, we always say be kind, but like be kind to yourself and be kind to others. But I was in hospital a lot as a kid, and I remember a child, I think she died. I mean, I think she did, because I kind of remember that happening, but nobody told me about that, you know, and I was really worried about that. I used to think I was going to die as a kid. I remember,
of course,
seeing, you know, my own funeral and thinking, God, I'm going to die, because I didn't really know what was wrong with me.
But I think as well, when you're a child and you lose somebody, or you know somebody who's sick and died, there's a sense, and I think you do it as adults as well, when somebody gets sick, you're like, oh, they're going to die, or yeah, and you even do it yourself, like you become a bit of a hypochondriac, because you sort of go, oh, I'm going to die next.
Yeah, and it's a trauma response. And I think they now have great research around attachment theory and trauma, and how we are attached will affect how we grieve. And I really would encourage people, I mean, if they don't want to engage in talk therapy or support or whatever, even just to read around grief. It's such a huge area, and it's so different for everybody else. One of the things that I think really helps is just witnessing and listening to other stories. You know, it could be as simple as that, like just listening and knowing that, you know, it's okay to grieve in a different way, or it's okay to carry it around for a long time. Because I wish we could just
Well, it doesn't magically disappear.
No.
You know, and it's, in like some stages you can be okay till as well as you can be till about 3 years, and it might hit you at 3 years. And then you're going, why is it hitting me now?
There's delayed grief.
Yeah.
I've seen people who've lost their dog and would really be overwhelmed with the grief because there was unprocessed, disenfranchised grief from when maybe their dad died or their mother died, when they were at a particular time in their life when they couldn't grieve. Very often, and you know, you would know this, when you have a traumatic death and you still have to function as a mother or a father or whatever you have to do, you box that away.
You compartmentalise.
You have to.
Sure.
And then occasionally...
And then it comes.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
And it's so sad. Like I was speaking to somebody recently who is so hard on themselves because they lost their mother and they took time off work to look after their mother, you know, when they were sick, which is totally normal. But then they were made redundant when they went back into work. And they're really in a very hard place right now. And I just had to explain that the world is not fair.
No.
You know, you can't take this on, but that's a huge loss that they're now processing.
Absolutely.
And
the loss of a job is huge, because that's something, and we've talked about this as well, is that like when it's part of your life, day in, day out, you might have in that time have all your kids, you might have got married, you might have, and then suddenly it's gone. That's huge.
It is. It's a loss of identity. It's a loss of how you feel, like how you've shown up in life for all of this time. And then you feel guilt and shame for having taken time out to grieve. So we have this society where we're told to be robotic. You know, AI will tell you how to grieve in 5 days. Or, you know, I mean, it's just not a way to live. Like even recently somebody said to me, and you'll appreciate this. So I was chatting to somebody on air and they kind of said, oh, you were so successful and you had all this success and kind of what are you doing now? And I said, it was really interesting to me because I actually believe, particularly in the last 10 years, I've done 2 masters, I've done a lot of research and I do a lot of work and I do a lot of writing that people don't read under Andrea Hayes because I just put it out there and nobody knows it's me, which is fantastic. But I said, in society, what's unseen now is not valuable. And just because it's not seen doesn't mean it's not successful. So grief is private. Do it in your way and don't feel judged. There's a huge trend now about online grief, which can be very helpful, but that can also have frozen grief. So we're frozen in time because social media keeps reminding us of a certain period, which is helpful, but we have to move and we have to move on.
And I think that's, part and parcel with why sort of when you come to a stage of, as the years go on, and then of course, you know, if you have social media, which most of us have, whether it be for work or whatever, you'll get these memories that pop up. And the person may be in it, or it may be the first, second, third anniversary that you've marked, you know, you've paid a little tribute to them on social media, and that comes up, and now you're down year 7 or year 8, and you go, how is it this time? And it feels worse in one way because all these posts are reminding you that they're so far away now. So you're longer that you've seen that person.
It's a whole new area. So there's huge research coming out about it, but it's causing complications for people because our books, like if you look at Kubler-Ross, the 5 stages and everybody, and you know, or the dual process, there's all these different models and stages and states of grief. But actually, it's changing because of social media. Another area that I've noticed is, I don't know if you've heard of the telepathy tapes, which is a very popular podcast, but even looking at consciousness now. So neuroscience is ever developing, and now people really believe maybe that consciousness exists pre and post kind of our lived experience in life. So then, is energy going anywhere else, or is consciousness still here? So are we connecting with people who've passed on? And you have to hold that gentle for people, because that's what people believe other people wouldn't believe. So you have to be aware that different people think about grief and think about loss in a different way. So just because their experience of how they're mourning their loved one is not the same as yours, it doesn't mean that one's right or one's wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think it's all changing. So some people get great value from social media and find it really affirming, but other people are very disenfranchised by it, or it's really causing this frozen grief where they can't. They're stuck.
Yeah, and I think sort of you can believe that it would be understandable for a lot of people, especially if they're going through grief for the first time, that there's only one way to grieve. You know, and it's like even what you're talking about, like your dog dying or something, that is huge to a lot of people, and probably not recognised as much as it should be at the moment. But again, like that seems to be changing with like pet bereavement leave, and you know, with your own sort of all the work you've done and all the masters and the writing, and I know you found journaling was exceptionally helpful to you.
It was. So that's been really helpful to me. But honestly, the more I know, the less I know. So the more I learn, I keep going, I know less. Like I had a recent study, a really exciting study for me, is that I really believe grief is in the body. It gets stuck. The body holds the score. So I was looking at somatics, like movement, and I wouldn't be very good at that. Sometimes I am, sometimes I'm not. But there's a grief study around cycling and grief, but particularly with men, and that this cycling has had this amazing kind of healing effect. So I just think it's wonderful to constantly keep looking and just saying, maybe I'll try a walk. I know walking was very good for me when I was gone. So if you're stuck, I always say emotion needs motion. And I have no problem with lying in the bed as well. But if you're just really stuck, or if you're listening to this and you just really are, you can't get out, just try a little gentle movement or walking and allow the emotion to get a bit of motion in your body, you know, or dancing, or I don't know, whatever it is, jumping up and down, screaming into a pillow. Allow it to somehow get out.
Yeah,
you know?
Nora Casey has talked about that, the movement.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think it's, you know, that's very interesting, because then one thing leads to another.
Yeah.
Like, I never really ran before Martin died. Okay. And now it's my thing, you know?
Yeah.
And it's sort of, for me, it's very therapeutic. It helps. It just gives me that sort of space. And I think a lot of people start running for that reason, because it's that freedom, you know? Because there is, when you lose somebody, that sort of the impetus to just curl up into a ball.
Which you need some
you
days.
know, which you need to do as well. So it's a balance, really.
I had a lady who told me that, you know, night times were really hard for her, and, you know, I understood that. So she just thought, I'm going to get out of my bed at night time and I'm getting into my car. So she drove down to the beach, and she said there was people at the beach, Andrea. I couldn't believe it. And she said, I went down every night, and she used to just throw a stone into the water, and she let a little bit of her grief go away, and then she'd come back and go to bed and get up and have her day. But she met a community of swimmers, and after about 2 years, she was in the water, and this woman said, you wouldn't believe, I wouldn't even put my toe in the water, but it was the community piece.
Yeah.
And I think community is so important. I always say your vibe attracts your tribe. If your vibe is in grief at the moment, there's somebody out there that will support you and want to hear your story and listen to it. So if people aren't connecting with you right now, it's okay to let things go. Surrender old friendships if that has to happen, old places, workplaces, old clothes. Surrender it with a good heart and say, it doesn't really fit the way it used to anymore, and that's okay.
And it might only be for right now.
Yeah, exactly. But go where the comfort is.
Yeah.
Now, I would say try to avoid the fridge, because I love going for places like that. But, you know, go for comfort.
I think we all do.
I know, but be kind to yourself and be gentle, because it's so hard.
It is, and I think what you're saying is right. I mean, I think that often friendships change. There's a dynamic, there's a shift. There's the people who, through no fault of their own, do not understand, and then the time may come where they do understand, because sadly they go through that process themselves, and there's the whole... I think you change so much as a person yourself, because and part of that... Sometimes I think it's deliberate. You want a new look. You want to do a new thing. You know, you start running and you buy Lycra for the first time ever in your life. But there is this sort of, or you start swimming, you know, and that's your thing too. So I think it can be such a huge change that for people around you as well, they're going, they have to change, adapt with that change.
Yeah, and there's so much loss. Often if you lose somebody significant, you lose certain relationships and friendships in time, not immediately, but after a year you stop getting the invitations or you stop getting asked. That's a double loss then. But then I suppose if you kind of say to yourself, I'm going to see this as an opportunity to grow in a different area. You know, you don't grow where you're not being watered or you're not getting sunlight. Notice who is watering your life. Notice who's giving you a bit of sunlight. Because if you're not getting that support, it's okay to try and manoeuvre in a different circle. If you can see it that way, you know, because don't try to keep fitting into something that doesn't feel
right.
Yeah.
And it may feel right again.
Oh, it will. And it can
thing.
come back around.
Yeah.
But I always say to people, ask yourself in the morning, what do I need today? What do I need? And just look at what you need. And if you go into work and you need a quiet day, or whatever you need, try to honour what you need, because it's okay to look after yourself now.
And that's, you know, it's interesting to do it that way, because then you're actually, the day seems more manageable if you don't feel like it's going to be a good day, or, you know, like obviously every day, especially if kids, throws different things into the mix, but it's a more manageable way, I suppose, of dealing with it.
If you can, I mean, it might work, it might not work, but even just noticing how you're feeling and noticing what you need, because sometimes we need to talk to somebody, or sometimes we need to be quiet, we need to have a laugh, but noticing what you need will stop you being brought into somebody else's story or somebody else's needs or somebody else's vision of how you should grieve, you know?
Yeah. how, like, obviously we touched on, you know, all your losses in one way through life from the beginning with your hearing loss, and then, you know, obviously all the pain you went through in a physical way, your babies. How are you now in dealing with everything?
I'm always feeling so blessed. I just feel very, very lucky and very blessed, because tomorrow, and I'm so aware of this, I could walk out here today and get a call, I get a knock on the door. So our life is a privilege. The fact that we can breathe and be here is such a privilege to me. So I'm always in that mood. I have good moods, good days and bad days, but I'm so acutely aware of the people who are lying in hospital who don't have that gift. And we all know that they'd leave. We'd all have a day. We'd do anything for another day with these people. So I feel very blessed. I'm very lucky that I can keep researching and doing things that I'm interested in. But I have become very aware that everything I've done in life, even all the TV and the books and the, you know, radio and thing, it's all because of this deep empathy that I feel. Not just
and you're
for
lucky
people.
to have it, because there's a lot of people that struggle with empathy.
I thought everybody felt that way, and
Yeah.
you realise some people aren't. But I think go to the people, go to the comfort, go to the people that are making you feel supported, heard, seen, witnessed, because your story is important, you're important, and your grief and your pain is real. Don't let anybody diminish your pain. You know, don't let anybody do that, because your pain is real.
Yeah. No, it is such an honest way, I think, of looking at. For anybody listening who feels that the work you do in Bethany or Bethany as a whole may be beneficial or helpful to them, how do they get in touch?
Well, we are in the Shankill, Bethany, but if you go onto bethany.ie, there's a website. It's not a very cool website. We're a very small little charity, but it's a free listening service. So it's not counselling, it's just listening, and it's free in the community.
Perfect. Andrea, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Grief Pod with Venetia Quick. You can listen on SoundCloud or wherever you get your podcasts. We also have an online community on Facebook, The Grief Pod, or on Instagram @GriefPod Series.